super minute since I did study sessions. I guess before I start, just to kind of give a reasoning, I decided to do some self-development and take some classes. So pretty much from August until a couple weeks ago, I've been doing all of these self-improvement type classes. So but now I'm back. I'm, reinvigorated. You know how people be like, new year, new me. Like, nah, new year, same, trying to get back to doing what I had already had a passion to do anyway. So here we are. So this specific study session, we're starting off MenyetAnkhEnMaat. This specific study session, we are starting a new text. We have read, and if y'all see, I'm like, I got so many freaking books. It's a wonder the people underneath me don't got books falling through their ceiling, but I digress. So the book that we're going to read this specific, hopefully this month, hopefully we could be done. As I've said in the past, I like to try to choose books that are something we can get through in a couple of weeks. MenyetAnkhEnMaat. So the book that I chose this time is Egyptian Magic, and I know it's like backwards. But this is a book by E.A. Wallis Budge. The reason why I chose this one is that, and I'm like, I know I'm probably gonna make some people mad, but it's the internet. And not everybody's gonna be happy with everything you say and do. So I feel like within the Kemetic community, because I am a Kemetic practitioner, I've been practicing for, 11 or 12 years now. So the more and more I learn, the more and more I see, it just seems like people are more on, it's, they have it in common, or, it's all that divine truth and blah, 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 blah. And that's cool. I get it. If that's the wave you on, that's cool. But respectfully, when someone considers themselves on a certain specific spiritual path, they're doing those specific things of that spiritual path. Like, you don't get that luxury of, I pick a little of this, pick a little of that, blah, blah, blah. It's very flippant. And spiritually, I just think it's really irresponsible of people. So, I try my best to be a purist. I try my best to try to stick to, what did the ancestors say? What did they write down? What are they talking about? And if there are gaps, because a lot of people will say that, they're like, oh my gosh, over the years stuff goes missing, and or it was destroyed, we can't possibly know. And again, I understand that, but a lot of the things I see are, in my opinion, spiritual laziness, where people are just, they do this in Santeria, so we're just going to do that too. And it's in common, so it's cool with the ancestors. But it's like, but if the ancestors had a certain way of doing it, why don't we just do it that way? So that's one of the reasons for all these study sessions, to really try to get into how did the ancestors do things, learning more about the wisdom text. So we don't always have to rely, as practitioners, we don't always have to rely on just other people's interpretations or secondhand information, which obviously I know Budge is technically secondhand information. I get it. He's an Egyptologist. I'm not the biggest fan of Egyptologists, but I'm still learning to speak Medu Nature and read. Well, okay, I didn't say that sentence right. Ronnie Kemet would be the end of that sentence, but I'm still learning to read and become literate in such Medu Nature. So and language is not exactly my strongest thing. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'll take algebra and calculus any day. Language has just been something that's very a little more challenging for me. So I've I've taken French for 8 years, I've taken Spanish for 6 years, I've taken Swahili for 2 years, I took Korean. As they say, if you don't use it, you lose it. So I lost it, a lot of it. I can understand a lot, but speaking, not so good. So hopefully with Sesh Medu Nature and learning Ronnie Kemet, I will hopefully get better. And again, the whole point of that is I truly want to know what the ancestors had to say about a lot of things, because let's be honest, humanity, there's not that much stuff that's new. When it comes to the human experience. Okay, yes, technology and so on and so forth, but there's not that much that's new. So let's dive in. I'm done talking. That's enough for me. Let's listen to the ancestors. Let's see what they say. So if you do not have a copy of this book, it is generally pretty cheap. I personally am old-fashioned. I like actual paper books just because I usually like to write and highlight, which I just thought to myself. My highlighter is sitting on my desk, so I'm going to try my best to take mental notes and come back if I need to. But the book, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's like $6.99, $7.99. If you get it on Amazon, I don't think it's more than $10. You'll see this book with the purple cover. You'll also see a couple of other covers. Like I said, I like to highlight, write notes and stuff like that. So that's why I prefer it. If you want a digital copy, I have found a digital PDF copy. So if you want to send me a DM for that, I can send that to you. So like I said, here we go. So let's start now. Blah, 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 blah. All right, the preface. Now, again, if you've studied with me in the past, you already know my I don't want to say gripe, but I've always been a person like, let's just jump into it. What do I need to read the preface for? What do I do? And my Seba Sanjeti Ankra, he fussed at me. He's like, you can't do that. Any scholar, you know, worth their salt, like you can't just skip the preface and the forwards because they give you other inside information. So I'm not going to say begrudgingly, but here we go. All right, so our preface starts as a study of the remains of the native religious literature in ancient Egypt. Now, you'll also find, like, as I'm reading, that I will switch out, or I will try to use the Rani Kemet and not the Greek interpretations. So I will usually try to say both to develop that habit. So anyway. Start again. A study of the remains of the native religious literature of ancient Kemet, aka Egypt, which have come down to us, have revealed the fact that the belief in magic, that is to say, in the power of magical names and spells and enchantments and formula and pictures and figures and amulets, and in performance of ceremonies accompanied by the utterance of words of power to produce supernatural results, formed a large and important part of the Kemetic religion. So again, we didn't even get that far, but a lot of people want to take the history of Kemet. They want to take the, we see a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? I'll say they try to make it very Pan-African and across the thing. So they try to stick to like politically, historically, and so on and so forth, and kind of want to just say, oh, well, you know, the spiritual stuff, and just kind of make up some type of hocus pocus. So again, that's why we're reading this book. But it's very important knowing the rituals, knowing like, okay, morning prayer was a thing, like that was important. Having certain things to protect your home, your dwelling, doing certain rituals to kind of make sure that your spirit is in line, like that. All of those things were very, very important. So, and again, it's right in the preface. So let's continue. And it is certain that notwithstanding the continuous progress which the Kemetic or the Kemetyu or Egyptians made in civilization and the high intellectual development to which they eventually attained, this belief influenced their minds, and from the earliest to the latest period of their history. You gotta love living in the hood. People always gotta be loud doing something. Anyway, sorry. Influenced their minds, and from the earliest and latest period of their history shaped their views concerning things temporal as well as spiritual in a manner which at this stage in the history of the world it's very difficult to understand. I don't think it's really that difficult. I'm just saying. But I guess for somebody like a quote-unquote outsider, yeah, okay, I get it. The scrupulous care with which they performed their innumerable religious ceremonies and carried out the rules which they had formulated concerning the worship of the divine power or powers, and their devotion to religious magic gained for them among the nations with whom they came in contact the reputation of being at once the most religious and the most superstitious of men. We understand that's like a common, like men and women. We're not trying to be MenyetAnkhEnMaat. We're not trying to be sexist or, you know, one gender over the other. Like, the book was written in 18 something, y'all. So that this reputation was on the whole well deserved is the object of a little book to shew. Kemetic magic dates from the time when the pre-dynastic and prehistoric dwellers in Kemet believed that the earth and the underworld and the air and the sky were peopled with countless beings, visible and invisible, which were held to be friendly or unfriendly to man according to the operations of nature, which they were supposed to direct, were favorable or unfavorable to him or her. In nature and the attributes these beings were thought by primitive men to closely resemble himself and to possess all human passions and emotions and weaknesses and defects. And the chief object of magic was to give man the preeminence over such beings. I have a problem with that. Just that last part of the sentence, because at least maybe now in the 21st century as a practitioner, that is, to me, yes, the Neteru and all of that, the emotions, weaknesses, and so on and so forth, yes, that's on point. But the part where it says that to have preeminence over such things, no. I see, like, the reason why we do rituals and magics and things like that is to restore Ma'at or to maintain Ma'at with the divine powers. It's not about subjugating them. It's not about, you know, you have to do my will because I said so and I'm a human being and I'm asking you to do, like, no, they're the divine. They're going to do what they're going to do, but you want to be in alignment with them. You don't want to go against kind of what, you know, if you will, if you want to be very general about it, you don't want to go against nature. Nature's like gravity. You could try to go against it, but you jump out that window, you're going to hit the floor. Like, you have to be in accordance with it. Unless you're going to either have a parachute in some way, shape, or form, which the parachute would be your magic, your amulets, your protection rituals, and so on and so forth. Or it could be you have like one of those big air pillow things on the ground to catch your behind. Because you, like, I mean, how... How full of yourself do you have to be? Like, I'm going to just tell God what to do. I'm going to just tell nature what to do. Hey, universe, you better do what I say. Like, that's not even spiritual. That don't even sound right to me. So, respectfully, Mr. Budge, no thank you. All right, continuing on. The favor of the beings who were placeable and friendly to man might be obtained by means of gifts and offerings, but the cessation of hostilities on the part of those that were implaceable and unfriendly could only be obtained by wheedling and cajolery and flattery, or by making use of an amulet or secret name or magical formula or figure or picture, which had the effect of bringing to aid of the mortal who possessed it the power of being that which was mightier than the foe who threatened to do evil to him. Honey, let me tell you. So, you'll notice, yes, I read, but I kind of like weave in and out and back and forth. So, I am very big into TikTok. I'm very big into like social media and stuff like that. And I have seen so many people, especially like politically lately, like, oh, I'm going to throw a hex on that person. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, ooh, you messing with some dangerous stuff. Like, I don't know about all that. I don't think that's too cool, because just like it said, you need to have something that's mightier than your foe. If it's your foe, it's not like you calling up like, hey, Mitch McConnell, what you got back there? Like, so that you can have something stronger. Like, you don't know. So it's just very dangerous to try to outwardly kind of throw stuff out there. It's very irresponsible. You know, if we want to use the word karma, that is not good to be throwing stuff out at people and you don't think it's going to come back on you, or you're just oh so protected. Like, no, if you're breaking Ma'at, if you are breaking those 42, then like, what you think? Like, you could have all the amulets in the world, but the Neteru going to be like, sis or sir, like, you broke Ma'at. You cannot, like, you have to be in accordance with everything. You can't just be throwing stuff out and doing stuff from a selfish place like, oh, well, I want this or I deserve this. Maybe you don't deserve it. maybe you did some stuff that you need to kind of make right before you can have those blessings and manifest and this, that, and third. Like, I see a lot of people out there these days, like, oh, I'm gonna do my magic and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that and everything's gonna just happen. And it's like, well, if you didn't come in Ma'at, if you didn't try to, if you're outside of that balance, that harmony, all, that reciprocity, like, how are you throwing stuff at people and then saying you're abiding by Ma'at? Like, that's a break glass in case of an emergency type of situation. Like, okay, I'm living in Ma'at, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, this, that, and the third, and these people keep attacking me and this, that, and third. You ask for a reading, you do stuff to try to see, like, ooh, am I effing up somewhere? Because maybe you are. I mean, we're smart, we're intelligent beings, but we don't know it all. Sometimes we got to ask outside. Yep, that vigilante approach sure is. And respectfully, a lot of people in the conscious community are like that. A lot of people in the conscious community are just mad. And they just want to try to one up or my ego or, it's like, oh my gosh, like, whew, it's crazy out there. So be careful, y'all. All right, the magic of most early nations aimed at causing the transference of power from a supernatural being to man, whereby he was enabled to obtain superhuman results and to become for a time as mighty as the original possessor of the power. But the object of the Kemetyu magic was to endow man with the means of compelling both friendly and hostile powers. Nay, at a later time, even nature, I'm not sure how I'm liking the way this sentence is going, but I'm going to read it. Even nature himself to do what he wished, whether they were willing or not. I think that's pretty much exactly what I was just talking about. So originally the Kemetyu was like, no, it's all about Ma'at. And eventually, again, because we know there were many invasions, there were, then we started mixing with other groups of people. And again, like religiously, culturally absorbing other people's stuff, that, people started getting away from the original intention, which again, I know this isn't popular. Don't beat me up now. But when people be like, oh my God, Christianity is so bad, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure early Christians weren't like, let's make this religious system to subjugate whole populations of people in Africa. Like, bro, they wasn't thinking that. Like, they was on a spiritual journey too. It was people who came way later who effed it up and used it as a tool for horribleness, because again, that's humanity. Humanity does all kinds of stuff. Not even going to talk about politics from yesterday. Moving back to the topic. Blah, 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 blah. See, now I lost my space. It's one sentence I'm behind in. Good grief. All right, the belief in magic, the word being used in its best senses, is older than Kemet and the belief in nature, and it is certain that a very large number of Kemetyu religious ceremonies, which were performed in later times as an integral part of highly spiritual worship, had their origin in superstitious customs which date from a period when nature, under any name or in any form, was unconceived in the minds of the Kemetyu. Indeed, it is probable that even the use of the sign which represents an axe, which stands as the glyph both for nature and... It's interesting because it says G-O-D with a capital G and then G-O-D with a small g in quotations. Hi, Doug. Interesting. Indicates that this weapon and tool was employed in the performance of some ceremony connected with religious magic in prehistoric, or at any rate in pre-dynastic times, what it is in some mysterious way symbolized the presence of the supreme power, which I could see why an axe would do that. But it's interesting because the reason why that makes sense to me is I was reading over the summer, it was called, I think it's another Budge book, but it was like Fetish in Ancient Egypt. But it was essentially talking about like how things developed from pre-dynastic times and moved into moved into like what we see as like the more organized religious views, and the why, you know, where certain stuff came from, and like it started talking about some of the glyphs and why this glyph was associated with like this netter or this netteru, and so on and so forth. Netter and the netter. You think that's what that means? That capital G and little g in the not parentheses, in the quotations? Perhaps. And I only say perhaps because I'm just a regular person. So, but I can ask somebody smarter than me who studied longer. That I can do. All right. From the religious books of ancient Kemet, we learn that the power possessed by a priest or a man who was skilled in the knowledge and working of magic was believed to be almost boundless, which I could kind of see that as still kind of being the same nowadays. By pronouncing certain words or names of power in the proper manner and in the proper tone of voice, he could heal the sick. And again, we could even see that with the conscious community now, talking about, you know, oh, it's all about vibes, vibes. I mean, I swear I'm getting sick of hearing that word vibes. It's like, do you even really know? Like, what are you really talking about? You just throwing the word out there. Or the people who achieved their asar. That's a good point. That's a good point. Maybe that is what that means. I like that one. That could be that for sure. See, look, I keep looking up and talking. I keep losing my space or where I am. Heal the sick, yada, 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 yada. All right, and cast out evil spirits which cause pain, suffering in those who were deceased. Restore the dead to life, which spiritually, I'm pretty sure they're not talking about no zombie stuff, y'all. Like, when we talk about somebody passing away, raising their vibration so that they can go on their 40-day journey and go to the judgment and so on and so forth. I'm pretty sure they're not like, rise, Frankenstein. Like, they wasn't on that time. And bestow upon the dead man the power to transform the corruptible into the uncorruptible body. So again, that journey to Asar. Wherein the soul might live for all eternity. His words enabled human beings to assume diverse forms at will and project their souls into animals and other creatures. And in obedience to his commands, inanimate figures and pictures became living beings and things which hastened to perform his behest. The powers in nature acknowledged his might, and the wind and rain, storm, the tempest. Why do I have to live in the hood, y'all? They just want to be loud. They was not this loud earlier. See, they emphasize. They like, yeah, she right. Storm and tempest, river and sea, and disease and death worked evil and ruin upon his foes, and upon the enemies of those who were provided with the knowledge of the words which he had wrested from the Neteru of heaven and earth and the underworld. I think that's interesting because, see, a lot of the time when I think of, like, when I read things from Egyptologists, I have to remind myself, I almost poked my eye out, y'all. I have to remember to myself, like, okay, these were people who were Christians, but they're historians. So they not, you know, and they might not necessarily look at it from, like, and considering, because I do think there's a lot when we consider African religious systems, those commonalities and understandings of things. It's just, I ain't gonna jack somebody else's stuff, slap or set on it and keep it pushing. Like, nah, to me that's a no-no. I don't understand why people do that, but I digress. So when I read that, if I didn't have the understanding I already have, I would think he's being very literal that is what they thought. And I question that. I really don't believe so, because again, we're talking about metaphysics, we're talking about spiritual. We're not literally trying to raise dead people, we're not literally trying to make the river and the sea do this, that, and the third, but we are trying to pay our respects to the nature that runs that and be in accordance with that, and petition the Neteru, like, please have mercy, because, you know, maybe we did too much to the land. We need to restore Ma'at so that it don't flood so much that it kills people, or, you know, other things like that. So I think the way it's written is a little literal, but again, you know, I gotta like switch back and forth between my Kemetic brain and then my secular brain, if you will. Inanimate nature likewise obeys such such words of power. So the Hekau, and even the world itself came into existence through the utterance of the word by Jehuti. They have here written Toth. By their means, the earth would render asunder, and the waters, forsaking their nature, could be piled up in a heap, and even the sun's course in heaven could be stayed by a word. Now, let me tell y'all. Again, I don't necessarily think it is that literal that they were like, I'm gonna say, but I mean, the human mind and will is a hell of a thing. It is a hell of a thing. So, okay, maybe waters will not forsake and pile up and this, that, and the third, but when somebody's mad, they will be full of, to be very Southern about it, they're gonna be full of a lot of devilment. So they're gonna concentrate all of their power, their vibration, as it just said, to make negativity happen. Like, I mean, again, not talking about politics yesterday, but look at what can happen from a word. And it just said it, from the word of Jehuti, all of these things happen. From the word comes so much action. So I don't think it's that literal, but I really think it has more to do with how the word leads into other actions, not necessarily making the clouds turn into bubblegum or something like that. Like, I don't think so. So no, oh, he's getting real interesting with this. I'm sorry. No god or spirit or devil or fiend. Now, I specifically said God and not nature. Could resist the words of power, and the Kemetyu invoked their aid in the smallest as well as the greatest events of their lives. Now, the first thing that comes to me is that story of Osset trying to get the secret name of Ra, and you know, all the stuff that she went to him, because then she would be able to have his not have his power, but you know, it's when being curious goes wrong. And then you know way too much. And now what do you do with that knowledge? So again, it's that idea of when you truly know a person, when you maybe know all their deep down dirty stuff, when you know, like when you know their name, then, you know, you can, again, get a lot out of that kind of situation. Human beings. Anyway. They can invoke. Okay, so they invoked it and they used it for special events in their life. To him that was versed in the lore contained in the books of the double house of life. Time to Google, underline, highlight. I'm like, oh, double house of life. Word, say no more. I got you. Googling it. The future was as well known as the past, and neither time nor distance could limit the operations of his power. The mysteries of life and death were laid before him, and he could draw aside the veil which hid the secrets of fate, destiny from the knowledge of ordinary mortals. I think that's part of just the whole journey of consciousness and in general elevating one's own self. Like, as they say, the more you elevate, the more lonely you get, because the more you just understand. So I can see that. Now, if views such as these concerning the magician's power were held by educated folk of ancient Kemet, there's little to wonder at when we find that belief in superstitions of the most degraded character flourished with rank luxuriance among the peasants. Oh, that's interesting. So when did it finally kind of come down to the everyday person and working classes of that country, who failed to understand the symbolism of the elaborate ceremonies which were performed in the temples, and were too ignorant to distinguish the spiritual conceptions which lay at their root? That gave me a whole lot right there. So just as a side note, I am a history teacher by trade. Like, that is my day job. So there is this the show The Tudors. It came out years ago, and it was, when I was watching it, this one scene that really kind of like oh, now I'm reading that. I'm gonna come back to that. there's this one scene where they were talking about oh gosh, what was it, with Martin Luther? Oh, I can't remember the word. Y'all know what I'm talking about, when they broke off from the Catholic Church. And the Pope, or the person who was playing the Pope, was just like, you know, it's blasphemous to translate it from the Latin to the common lay language, because now everybody feels like they're an authority and that they know. And it's just like, and I understand that, because part of the Reformation was this idea that knowledge, especially spiritual knowledge, shouldn't be limited to certain people of status. So I could kind of see it from both sides, but this is somewhat kind of interestingly the same type of concept, where it's just like, yeah, the everyday person. We could even see this now within the conscious community. Like, how many people in social media are out there throwing tarot cards for people and doing readings on people and doing all this spiritual stuff, and like, sir and or sis, you only been doing this for a whole year. Like, do you really have, thank you, the 95 Theses with Martin Luther, thank you. Like, and I'm not, this isn't a slight to anyone's intelligence, it's just Nasib Bidi Rasan Kukeper of the Temple of Anu has always said, like, it takes 40 years to become a master. A master, 40 years. I'm 37 and I started this 12 years ago. That means I ain't gonna be a master no time soon. That's why I always am like, nope, I'm a regular person. I can look it up. I'm just learning and trying to help people who are kind of like on that wave. Because not every Kemetic person gotta be a priest. Not every Kemetic person is meant for that. Just like how, contemporarily, not everybody's an entrepreneur. Not everybody's a leader. Not everybody has a different position to play. So getting back to the text, when they're saying, like, when did the everyday person get enough, like, spiritual understanding so that they could follow and try their best, but simultaneously, those who were too ignorant to distinguish the spiritual conceptions which lay at their roots. So if you really don't understand, we even see this now with other religions. And I see this with, like, I try my best to not talk about religion at work because, we ain't going there. But sometimes kids will ask me certain questions and I'll be like, well, did you read? Like, oh no, my pastor said. And I'm like, but did you read though? Like, that's something that we are just so used to, and I'm guilty of it too myself. Again, one of the reasons why I'm even doing this, because I need to know, I need to educate myself. I can't keep relying on 50 million other people to break it down or do a class or do a workshop to teach me something. So we all must stay in our lane, and I agree. Yes, we need to stay in our lane, but simultaneously also at the same time, like, it's cool to click lanes. It's cool to put that blinker on and be like, okay, I want to level up and then move in the middle. Or maybe you want to get all the way to the left and get in the fast lane. That's cool. And then you're like, ooh, this too fast. Get back in the middle. Like, a lot of people just be so stuck in their ego that they throwing cards at 1 year in spiritual awakening. Like, you're there's a Kemetic proverb that says, like, once you open somebody's eyes, like, oh no, I just misspoke. That's not a proverb. I'm sorry. I take that back. That's not a proverb. I forget now where I even heard it, but I know it's not a proverb. Where if you're a teacher and you open up somebody's eyes, yes, it's that accountability. You have to be accountable now for that person because you were the reason who kicked that off. Ooh, insert political connection here. Back on topic. So, again, it's a lot. It's a lot. And as people, or as Kemetyu in the 21st century, as people who are really trying to live, practice, read, study, and be within Ma'at 24/7, 365, it can become very frustrating listening to a lot of people who's just like, oh, I'm wearing an ankh and I'm gonna do this. Like, where they do that at? Like, why is that okay? What's going on? No. And then people are like, you can't tell me what to do. Like, I mean, people are funny. Way too much ego in the conscious community. Yes, yes, yes. Side note, going back, I'm like, what was this gentleman's name? I'm like, I totally, Gigi Cordial, the halls of Ma'at. So I even think, so I'm very, very big on Ma'at, as in, like, you will hear me say that 24/7. Like, I literally have her tattooed on my back. Like, I take her, the tenets, what she represents, I take it very, very seriously. So when you're saying, I forget which part that was because I said the double house of life, it says contained in the books of the double house of life. So I'm wondering if that is a literal book, now that you said that, or if they're being figurative. And the reason why I thought it was literal is because he put it in quotations. Excuse me. So that's kind of what made my brain go in that direction. Let me tell y'all how we only got like 3 pages in though. Like, we need to just read. All right, we almost done with the preface though. All right. To meet the religious needs of such people, the magician, and in later times the priest, found it necessary to provide pageants and ceremonies which appealed chiefly to the senses. Ooh, I need to stop having so many comments. And following their examples. Unscrupulous but clever men took advantage of the ignorance of the general public and pretended to knowledge of the supernatural and laid claim to the possession of the power of over the Netaru spirits and demons. Ooh. Such false knowledge and power they sold for Yo, this was written in 18 something, but this really sounds like 2021. Such false knowledge and power they sold for money, for purpose to gain. The so-called magician was ready to further any sordid transaction or wicked scheme which his dupe wished to carry out. This magic degenerated into what we now call sorcery and demonology and witchcraft. So, interesting choice in the different terms. And those who dealt in it were regarded and associated with, I'm going to say APEP because he's saying devil here. And I'm like, but Budge, there was no devil. No. So we're going to say APEP with that one. Or if we want to just say Isfet, like just general chaos. I'm like, wait. When I first became Kemetic, I was excited to see anyone without symbol. I'm gonna say with our symbols. Now I see that they are fans of ancient Egypt. There really do be a lot of like F boys and F girls for Kemet. It's crazy. Like, they like, what? Let me copulate with the legacy real quick and make some money. Back to the book. I swear. And servants of the power of darkness and workers in black arts. In the white and black magic of the Kemetyu, most of the magic known in other countries of the world may be found. It is impossible yet to say exactly how much of the beliefs and religious systems of other nations were influenced by them, but there is no doubt that certain views and religious ideas of many, look, this way, Budge just drove off the cliff. And religious ideas of many heathen and Christian sects may be traced directly to them. Many interesting proofs may be adduced in support of this statement, but the limits of this book will not admit their being given here. So, aka, he ain't gonna call everybody out like, you stole this, you stole this, you stole this. So, all right, he's trying to be neutral. He's being political out here. Plus, back in the 18-something, saying something against the church. No. He wanted to keep his job, so that makes sense to me. When we consider the lofty spiritual character of the greater part of the Kemetic religion, and remember its great antiquity, it is hard to understand why the Kemetyu carefully preserved it in their writings and ceremonies, so much which savored of gross and childish superstition. Oh, he just killed me, y'all. He truly just killed me. What? Sir, I'm about to skip everything you're talking about. No, I want to, but I won't. I will be strong. and which must have been the product of their pre-dynastic or prehistoric ancestors, even during the period of their greatest intellectual enlightenment. I think that's very interesting. I would even say at this time, like, how much of that is racism, how much of that is religious, like, superiority. I wonder how that kind of really played out, that whole sentence, because we always say, oh, pre-dynastic, or like prehistoric people, like they were just unintelligent beings, like clubbing women over the head and dragging people, like we have weird ideas from media. So I think that whole way he just said that, like, rubbed me all the way. Throw it out. Okay. Okay. Woo. Bring it back. All right. But the fact remains that they did believe in one God, one nature. Now I'm gonna stick with God. We're going to stick with that. Who was almighty and eternal and invisible, who created the heavens and the earth and all beings and things therein, and in the resurrection of the body has changed in glorified form, which would live to all eternity in the company of spirits and souls in the righteous kingdom, ruled by a being who was of divine origin, but who had lived upon the earth and had suffered a cruel death at the hand of his enemies, and had risen from the dead and had become the God and King of the world, which is now beyond the grave. His phrasing of things is so interesting. Like, oh, okay. The phrasing is interesting to me just because of his word choice. But again, this was written in 18 something. Menyet, come on, focus. And that although they believed all these things, had proclaimed their belief, which almost passionate earnestness, they never seemed to have freed themselves from the hankering after amulets and talismans and magical names and words of power, and seemed to have trusted in those that save their souls and bodies, both living and dead, with something of the same confidence which they placed the death of the resurrection of Asar. That is so wow. That was very oh my gosh. I can't think of any other word except for pretentious. That was so pretentious. Because the reason why I'm laughing so hard is, like, they couldn't free themselves from the hankering. I'll give my odds. They really could not help themselves from the hankering after amulets and talismans. I'm like, but what about that rosary though? But what about that crucifix though? Like, why is he saying it as though, like, no other religious groups do similar things? Like, people go to people have pilgrimages to Israel. People, they have to do certain things. They have to, like, human beings are ritualistic by nature. So the fact that he's saying that, like, oh, they have to have talismans, it's like, how many people literally paid priests for their loved ones to go to heaven, like, with indulgences and stuff like that back in the day? I mean, like, they even tell people now, and again, I can only really speak on Christianity just because that is, where I religiously came from. I know a little bit about other groups, but like, I grew up in a Jewish town, so I know of it. I really know the least about Islam. So I try to, I guess, wow. I tried my best not to compare, but this is a comparable moment, teachable moment, y'all. Cause even still, like, being born again, people just call the name of Jesus, and he's saying, like, they can't stop saying, like, using words of power, hekau, and it's like people do that now with modern religions. So what are you talking about, sir? But again, as Kaika said, that perspective. So a matter for surprise is that they seem to see nothing incongruous with such mixture of magic and religion, and the general attitude of the mind of the Kemetyu on the point is well illustrated by the following facts. Attached to the service of Ra, the sun Neter, at Thebes were numerous companies of priests whose duties consisted of making copies of religious books and in keeping alive the divine traditions. As in ministering, Lord, I almost couldn't say that word. Ministering to the god in their appointed seasons. The member of these companies who wrote the copies of the Book of the Dead. And it's crazy because he corrects him. He says it correctly in other books. So why he just put that there boggles my mind. So Perdam Haru. Which were buried with kings and queens and personages of royal or exalted rank, declared the power and omnipotence of Almighty God, whose visible emblem to mankind was the sun, and his sovereignty over things celestial and things terrestrial, with no uncertain voice. And we should expect them to believe what they proclaimed, i.e., that God was sufficiently powerful to protect his emblem in the sky. Yet the priests of Thebes made copies of works which contained texts to be recited at specific hours of the day and night, and gave directions for the performance of magical ceremonies, the avowed object of such being to prevent the mythical monster Apep from vanquishing the sun god. Interesting wording right there. And it is stated in all seriousness that if a piece of papyrus upon which a figure of the monster had been drawn, a wax figure of him, be burnt in a fire made of a certain kind of grass, and the prescribed words be recited over them as they burn, the sun god will be delivered from Apep, and neither rain, nor cloud, nor mist shall be able to prevent his light from falling on the earth. Moreover, the rubric describes the performance of the ceremony as a meteorous act. It is so interesting the way he says certain stuff. Like, okay. So, see now, I haven't participated in something just like this, but something similar. And the smiting of Apep at the end of Repwin Pet, and that in comparison to how he just read it, like, it is so much more connected, because it's kind of like, especially if you do moon work and you you're trying to burn away negative stuff and so on and so forth, that the fact that the way he says it is, or the way he phrases it is as though it's just some type of, oh, they're like silly children, like they just burnt some grass and blah blah blah. But at the same time, I do kind of understand the point that he's getting at, that it's kind of like, well, if Neter is all powerful, almighty, and so on and so forth, why are you doing all these rituals? Like, why do you even need to do that? So again, I can understand that, but then simultaneously, as a spiritual person, I want to make sure that, like, I could wake up and be in a bad mood, and because of that bad mood, I am screwing up my art. So we want to make sure that we have certain rituals, we have certain heka'u, we have certain things that we do to make sure, like, oh, no, come back, you gone too far, or you and your feelings, like, let's do this ritual right now, let's kind of get on point. Exactly. Like, I do too. I remember one time I stomped so hard on my piece of Apep that my foot was hurting so bad. I mean, you couldn't tell me I was gonna smite that day. But so I totally understand where he's coming from, but to a practitioner, like, we understand that every moment, like, even your thoughts have to be in ma'at. So if somebody cuts you off on the road, if somebody says something to you and it rubs you the wrong way, or it triggers you from something going on, this, that, and the third, and you're not staying, in accordance with ma'at, you could throw stuff off. So again, I totally get why people would want to do daily rituals, just in case we effing up out here. Like, that makes sense to me, but I digress. Let me do a time check real quick. Oh Lord, we got 5 minutes. Because we only supposed to be on for an hour. I'm like, how long is this first chapter? Ooh, okay, yeah, no. No. We definitely not gonna do it. I think I'll start though. Ooh, Lord, this chapter. The first chapter is 24 pages, so we definitely not gonna get that done today. But Road Rage, still working on that, girl. I swear, it really is something about when you leave your home, dealing with folks will bring you there. Even thinking about folks will bring me there. It's a constant battle, especially now COVID days. People are doing all kinds of stuff that it's like, really? Okay. Like making all kinds of decisions, saying all kinds of stuff. Like, oh man, yeah. I was about to say something, but I ain't gonna say it. But yeah, no, it's a thing. It really is. Or like people be all up in your way, or they be like at the light picking their nose. Like, what you doing? No. Ugh. So, all right, let's read at least 1 or 2 pages. So, chapter 1, Antiquity of Magical Practices in Kemet. In the first volume of this series is an attempt was made to set before the reader a statement of the ideas and beliefs of which the ancient Egyptians held in respect of the Neter, Neteru, the judgment, resurrection, immortality. In short, to sketch in belief outlined much of what was beautiful and noble and sublime in their religion. The facts of this statement were derived wholly from native religious works, the latest of which is some thousands of years old, and the earliest of which may be said to possess an antiquity between 6,000 and 7,000 years. I just think it's so funny that this man in 18 something said 6,000 and 7,000 years ago, like already gave this date, yet people are still walking around saying that Kemet was only 4,000 years, like way less amount of time, like, and this is knowledge from 18 something, like, okay, so this is technically outdated. I'm just saying. The extracts quoted in support of the deduction set forth in it were intended to enable the reader to judge for himself as to the general accuracy of the conclusions that were given. Many writers on the Kemetic religion have somewhat blinked the fact that it had 2 sides. On the one, it closely resembled in many aspects the Christian religion today. And on the other, the religion of many of the sects for which flourished in the first 3 to 4 centuries of our era. Oh man, this is so interesting. Oh, intellectual racism. Yes, awesome. Moving forward. For which may be said to have the beliefs which were part Christian and part non-Christian. It is, in its non-Christian aspects, it represents a collection of ideas and superstitions, which belong to oh my God, I'm about to throw him out the window again, which were to a savage or semi-savage state of existence. He's definitely from the 1800s, y'all. Oh, sir, he would have got punched in the neck nowadays. No, sir. All right. Menyet, why you gotta be so violent? Calm it down. It's just a book. We may think that such ideas and beliefs are both childish and foolish. He just keeps digging deeper. But there is no possible reason for doubting that they are very real things to those who held them. And whether they are childish or foolish or both, they certainly pass into the religion of the people of Kemet, wherein they grew and flourished, and where at least many of them adopted the Egyptian converts to Christianity or Copts. He just ain't gonna let this die. Reference is made to them in the best classical works of the ancient Kemetyu, and it is more probable that From them, they found their way into the literature of other great nations of antiquity through the Greeks, Romans, Arabs, and other countries in Europe. Wait, I'm like, sir, that time period, nobody else in Europe was writing anything down. What do we, what? Sir, they wasn't even bathing. What were they writing down other than Christian manuscripts? I mean, unless that's what he's trying to say. It found its way into the okay. In the following pages, an attempt will be made to place in the reader's hands the evidence as to the magical side of the Kemetic religion, which would have been out of place in the former work, the object of which was to describe beliefs of a more spiritual nature. But as in the book of the Egyptian ideas of the future life, the facts were given. Now, see, he capitalized all of that. So is he trying to say that that's a title of a book? We gonna Google it and find out. The facts here are given are drawn from papyri and other native documents, and the extracts are quoted from compositions which were actually employed by the Kemetyu to produce magical effects. The quote magic of the Kemetyu was two kinds. One, that which was employed for legitimate purposes and with the idea of benefiting either the living or the dead, the deceased. And two, that which was made use of in the furtherance of nefarious plots. I love that word, nefarious. I can't help it though, it makes me think of wasn't that what's the one? Despicable Me, Dr. Nefarious? Wasn't that like the old man? I'm sorry. Let me get back on track. Furtherance of nefarious plots and schemes, and was intended to bring calamities upon those against whom it was directed. In the religious texts, the works, we see how magic is made to be the handmaiden of religion, and it appears in certain passages side by side with the most exalted spiritual conceptions. And there can be no doubt that the chief object of magical books and ceremonies was to benefit those who had by some means obtained sufficient knowledge to make use of them. Honey, that goes back to the point I was making earlier about people get this much knowledge and now they out here trying to make money off of it. Like, you don't even really understand. Anyway. See, look what happens. I done closed the book and lost my place again. What's new? But the Kemetyu were unfortunate enough. It said unfortunate. Not to be understood by many of the strangers who found their way into their country, and as a result, wrong and exaggerated ideas of their religion were circulated among the surrounding nations, and the magical ceremonies which were performed at their funerals were represented by the ignorant, either as silly acts of superstition or tricks of the quote black arts. But I'm like, sir, didn't you just say that like 2 pages ago? Didn't he literally just call them childish and everything else? But now you kind of intellectually scolding these other ancient people for doing the same thing you just said. Anyway, but whereas the magic of every other nation of the ancient East was directed entirely against the powers of darkness and was invented in order to frustrate their fell designs by invoking a class of benevolent beings to their aid, and the Kemetyu aimed at being able to command their Neteru to work for them and to compel them to appear at their desire. I don't know about that, but okay, that's one interpretation or way of saying it. I don't really think it's the right one, but who am I? I'm just a Menyet. What do I know other than a lot? Let me stop. Let me calm it down, Menyet. Get your life. All right, these great results were to be obtained by the use of certain words, which I always struggle with this word, efficacious, efficacious, efficacious. There you go. must be uttered in a proper tone of voice by a duly qualified man. Such words might be written upon some substance, papyrus, precious stones, and the like, and worn on the person, when their effect could be transmitted to any distance. As almost every man, woman, and child in Kemet who could afford it wrote some such charm or talisman, it is not to be wondered at that the Kemetyu were at a very early period regarded as a nation of magicians and sorcerers. Hebrew and Greek and Roman writers refer to them as experts in the occult sciences and as the possessors of power which could, according to the circumstances, be employed to do either good or harm to man. So I'm gonna save it here on this page, and we're gonna pick up next week. So, oh Lord, I already am really feeling this book. I can't speak for you all. Let me know what you think, but I really like this. I'm really feeling it. I mean, I am not feeling some of his descriptions of things, but in general, I definitely like this. I think it's going to be, especially for the everyday practitioner, and this is one of the reasons why I picked this one, this is going to give a lot of insight and a lot of kind of like, these are everyday things that our ancestors did. So kind of like these are things perhaps we should think about emulating or furthering, trying to understand, to see if we, want to bring that back into common practice for us, or is it something that, okay, yeah, that's antiquated. We don't necessarily need to have a ritual to ward off scorpions, unless we're talking about spiritual scorpion, you know what I mean? Like, then we can have that kind of conversation. But definitely, yeah, it's a process. But okay, my cat is like harassing me. He's looking at me and trying to get my attention so that I could feed him. So next week, 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. Eastern time, same place, I will be here, and we will pick up where we left off. I did also want to say I am kind of relaunching my eBay store. The whole premise of this is, yes, I have certain other things that I'm having to come out where essentially I want to have these amulets that we're reading about, these different rituals and things like that. Everybody doesn't have the time to make certain things. See, look, you hear them being loud, trying to get my attention and being annoying. I love them though. They're my heart. Okay, I'm done. So essentially, long story short, is I want to try to make like a Kemetic botanica, if you will. So if you are a spiritual practitioner, you can get actual tools that our ancestors used. You can not just decorate your home, but you can have protection items for your home. You can have statues, you can have Kemetically themed organs, you can have like a bunch of different stuff. So right now, so far I got ancestor money, I got Florida water. I'm working on making Florida water with like a Kemetic twist. So again, these cats are horrible. Like they a mess, and he's staring at me. I don't see him right now. But anyway, the whole point of it is, again, this idea that I can go to the botanica, but I'm using tools from another system. And sometimes that is within tandem, and that's cool. And some of this stuff isn't. Like, that's another cultural expression. That is not what the ancestors were doing. Maybe they did something similar, but I want to try to, again, get as close to that as possible. So like I said, I got ancestor money. I'm coming out with cards to send people for holidays, birthdays, stuff like that. Like I said, Florida water. I'm trying to think. I'm literally looking at the stuff. I got some books. So slowly but surely, I'm getting there. Because yeah, it's time. I'm tired of constantly looking for things that I need and I can't find them. So I decided, okay, well, I might as well try. So that's my thing. So like I said, next week, Tuesday, 6 o'clock. I will be back. We will pick up with the book. If you have any book suggestions for stuff to read in the future, I'm totally cool with that. I do have a YouTube channel where I do upload, you know, longer videos or more like instructional type of videos, but just regular everyday studying, like being able to talk back and forth, is predominantly done through Instagram. So I feel like I said Tuesday. Did I say Tuesday, y'all? I feel like I said Tuesday. If I did, my mistake. I meant Thursday. So I will be back here on Thursday next week at 6 p.m. and we're going to pick up reading. So unless y'all got any questions, I'm going to go have myself a smoothie because I'm a little parched. So, oh, yay! I'm glad you got something out of it. I'm like watching the cat. I'm sorry. I'm like, I'm engaged. I'm focused. So I'm definitely glad. Like I said, I just try to do things that I know I personally need, or I'm like, dang, I wish somebody would do this. So I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just do it? And then maybe other like-minded folks will kind of, you know, come on in. So, all right, y'all. I've been saying bye for like 5 minutes. All right. Have a good, oh wait, I'm like, no, people be like, you got to do this. I don't even know. I'm sorry. So, I'll see y'all next week. I'm a tuan panatir, sawik sumente panatir, audwa maketi paheru. I will see y'all next week.
We the reflection of our ancestors. We like to thank you for the building blocks you left us. As your spirit possessed us, yo, you blessed us. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.